Man, I can already tell this is gonna be a shit show. Hi, my name is Callista, I go by Callie, and I'm transgender. So, I began taking estrogen on September 9th, 2023. That means as of recording this video at 11:38 p.m. on January 9th, 2024, I've been on estrogen for 4 months. It's been 4 months since I started this crazy, outlandish, amazing dream of a journey that I could have never have seen myself taking less than a year ago. Now, before we go on with this video, this should not and cannot be taken as medical advice. I'm not licensed in any kind of medicine, and so I'm not a valid resource for people who are seeking advice on whether HRT is right for them. I just want to share my experience of being on HRT and the ways that it has affected my life, whether it's real effects or just my brain being externally affected by it, which I guess is still real. But anyways, before we get started, I wanted to break down the parts for which this video is going to go into. First, I'm going to talk to you about the process that I go through every time I take my injections. This will probably include some things that will help people who may not be comfortable taking their medication or may be struggling with certain aspects of taking their medication. Second, we're going to talk about the physical changes that have been occurring to my body. This will include some pretty personal things, so I will say that this is a trigger warning, as there may be some pretty gross stuff that I talk about, and as such, it may not be appropriate for all ages. Third, we're going to be talking about the mental changes that have started to happen to me over the last 4 months, and this will probably serve as a bulk of what I'm going to talk about, since this is a majority of what I've been experiencing thus far. Lastly, I'm going to talk to you about some resources that have massively helped me during this time. This will include resources linked to medical works, as well as a small nonprofit text that go over everything you need to know about life as a transgender person. And the last thing that I want to talk about before we get started here is that being transgender can look different for everyone. That means regardless of whether or not you decide to go on hormones, get surgeries, or even use a different bathroom, it doesn't change the fact that you can still be and should be comfortable calling yourself transgender. If you identify as something other than your assigned gender at birth, congrats, you're transgender. So without further ado, let's get into it. Part 1, the trans medication experience. So I guess to start things off, I will give a brief overview of what kind of medication I take and how often I take it. I take injections into the left or right thigh, alternating between the two every week. I do this to myself, which probably isn't for everyone, I understand that. But there are a multitude of reasons I do injections, mainly their efficacy over other methods like pills or rubs. Now, here's the thing. I hate needles. And to be honest, I have to give myself nearly 2 hours a night in order to make sure I have enough time to go through with actually poking myself. I have to talk myself off cliffs and over hills, and it's a process. Now, to be honest, I would love to have someone who just does it for me, and for a little bit I did. But in a sense, I see this part of my life as something I do just for me. Something that is solely mine. I take my medication myself, and while that may seem lonely to some, I see it as one of the few self-love rituals I do every single week. I, in a way, use it as a way to worship myself. I take it as a time to be with myself and only myself. I make sure to praise myself for my own strength and my overcoming of fear that comes with having overcome needles. Now, here are some things about taking injections that may actually make it easier for some of you guys. Again, not medical advice, just some tips. First is finding a person who can do it for you. Sometimes the biggest hurdle is your own mind, and not necessarily a fear of needles, but the ability of actually doing it to yourself can sometimes and most of the time be taken care of by just having someone else do it for you. But I understand that sometimes that can be very difficult for people who are in difficult social situations. So these next few should really help you out. Second is always be in a comfortable place. This can be a bedroom, a front room, maybe your favorite kitchen dining chair. I do mine in my bedroom because I know that I'm going to want to lay down right after my shot because it makes me a little nauseous. Most importantly, this should also be a safe space. meaning if this is something you end up having to do at another house, if your parents are not necessarily supportive, then maybe that's what has to happen. But again, you should be in a spot that is safe, that you can be yourself, let your guard down, and honestly just go at your own pace. Third is distract yourself. Sometimes you need to reset. I find that watching a YouTube video or reading a book for a little bit can help get your mind off the fact that you have to stab yourself. So this can serve as a really good mental reset in order to get a more relaxed headspace before you do it. The last is realizing maybe injections just aren't for you. There are a variety of ways to take estrogen or testosterone, and they can all be just as effective. With the right dosage and the right technique, you can get the same results out of rubs that you can out of injections, that you can get out of pills. It's just about doing it right and doing what's right for you. Trying to force yourself down a particular path in the name of efficacy can end up just being detrimental to yourself in the long run. So choose which one's best for you. With that knowledge in mind, I really hope it helps with you taking your medication. Part 2. Physical changes. Again, trigger warning. I'll be talking about stuff like the effects on genitalia, secondary sex characteristics, as well as a couple of other weird things like sex drive and the like. So if this part isn't for you, go ahead and hop over to this timestamp or over here. I don't know. I'll pull it somewhere. And that'll put you right into the next part, mental changes. To be honest, this part is probably going to be the most difficult to talk about since 4 months in, you don't really see a whole lot of physical changes. I've noticed a few, but it's been a lot easier for my friends and family to notice. One aspect I've noticed a lot of is my skin. It's become a lot softer. The hairs on my face and my legs have become a lot thinner. And to be honest, it's been a largely slow process, but I've noticed my skin feels physically tighter. My complexion is a lot lighter. My cheeks are a lot rosier. But all of that is to say that these processes do take quite a long time. The second is my breasts. These puppies hurt. Also, they're growing, which is awesome. I will say that I'm a major outlier, and most people won't get the size of breast that I have until about 6 months in. Right now, I'm between a double A and a regular A cup, and I know some people who are on estrogen for over a year that have barely managed to scrape into a C cup. So this is going to be a largely variable process that is based all off of your family's genetics. And something that my doctor did tell me is that you can expect to see a cup size of about 1 less than the average female breast cup size in your family. So I'm pretty gifted in that sense because I know that my mom is somewhere near a G and my sister is near a D/double D. So I should be around a D to a C cup, which is a nice manageable size. To just cap that off is that your experience will be entirely unique to mine. You will not get the same exact size at the same exact pace as I do. And that's exciting because you get to go on your own unique journey. The third is the downstairs area. This part is a little bit weirder because I haven't noticed a lot in terms of I'm not paying attention to it a whole lot. Hey, Editing Callie here. Something I forgot to mention about physical changes is in the butt area. My waist has started to come in a lot and my butt has started growing a lot. I don't fit into any of the pants that I used to wear when I was living as a man, and I have started to have to wear more stretchy clothes because nothing fits. So that's something you should probably be ready for, as it can get a little expensive if you don't keep up on it. I've kind of slowly been piecing together things here and there, but just something to definitely keep in mind. And to be honest, sex is weird now. Probably largely due to my recently ended relationship, but outside of that, love is just much more to me now. And sex is kind of just one of those add-on things that just comes with the territory. And lastly, I've started to see little things change in myself that has made myself, I guess, see more of myself in my reflection. And I guess I'm just going to use that as a segue into our next part. Part 3. Mental changes be hitting. I gave a warning at the beginning, and this is a reiteration. There have been so many changes to my mental path over the last couple of months, and I cannot begin to explain every single one of them. This video would simply be too long. This is going to be my best attempt at putting this all into words and not make this a 4-hour long video. So let's go ahead and start where I started. And I want to kind of explain my mental process on the day of my first injection. I was nervous beyond all hell. I was fearful of my future. I didn't have any idea where I would go. And I sat at my kitchen table for 3.5 hours trying to talk myself into injecting myself with my first shot of estrogen. I can remember every thought going through my head at that moment. Am I making the right choice? Can I come back from this? Where will I go from here? And these thoughts flew around my head as I experienced the worst anxiety attack of my life. I don't know if I would have been able to do it had it not been for a new friend I made off of the Trans Academy Discord, which is also a great resource. You guys should go there. And if they wouldn't have talked with me for over 2 hours, I cried, they cried. I told her about my experience so far, and she told me about hers. I listened to her story about her first time taking medication, and after nearly 4 hours, I finally broke skin. This was honestly one of the most powerful moments of my life. I had taken control of something that I'd felt was free riding for nearly 23 years. My identity had constituted of simply things that had just gotten into my path and I had just absorbed into my identity. I'd finally chosen my own path. I was not just wandering until I ended up on a path. I made a choice for myself and only myself. I knew in that moment I had made the right decision. There was no dread, no worry. I had only felt the purest sense of joy that I had felt in my entire life. I was euphoric. Over the first few weeks, I went from 0 to 100 real quick. Things I wouldn't have given a second glance over now infatuated me. Trees turning to autumn colors looked far more vibrant. Flowers at the store had me Looney Tunes floating over to them to smell them. I started thinking about my own spirituality and my place in the world, and started realizing I was okay with being a small fraction of the beauty we have in this earth. This catapulted me into the biggest change of this time, which was the lifting of my mental clouding. Now, it's very typical for transgender people to feel a mental shroud over their entire life. It makes them see things more dully, makes them hear music less fondly, makes them smell smells less vividly. And as this lifted, they no longer had me toiling over the silly things I found in life. I started loving myself. I started loving my chosen name. I started living it. I used it on job applications. I made a spot in my world and I took it. I made new friends who all only knew me as Callie or Cal or Callista. This was a huge step in my life. My new chosen life. Around the second month, I started recognizing the person in the mirror. I remember the first time catching my own gaze in my reflection and smiling to myself. I simply locked eyes and recognized that it was me. It wasn't some husk carrying my soul. It wasn't some taxi for my brain. It was me. During the third month, I started realizing this was my new normal. And things honestly started cooling off a bit. And although that same feeling of joy came with me every moment that I lived my life, I started to get used to it a bit. This may not seem like a good thing, but in honesty, it's one of the most beautiful things that has happened so far in my transition. It's one of the most beautiful things of being transgender. The transition process is still happening to my body. Every day things are growing, shrinking, activating, and blooming inside of me. And these changes are becoming the new normal. That normal is much different from my last couple of years. I spent years searching for a plug to cover the hole that was in my heart. And there were so many levels of happiness that HRT brought me that normal started being laughing, started being crying, started being pure, unadulterated happiness. The last thing is realize that trans joy is real. It is something that you deserve to feel. If you decide that coming out is right for you, and if you decide that HRT is right for you, and everything in between. Part 4, resources. I'm gonna make this quick. All of these resources will be linked in the description for your convenience. I recommend reading the first two, but the third one is probably the largest factor that helped in me deciding that I wanted to come out and I wanted to go on HRT. 1. Planned Parenthood Transgender Hormone Therapy Resource Guide. Now, to be honest, this is a really awesome resource for people who want to know the medical effects. It was written by licensed professionals and gives you everything that you need to know about the effects of HRT. 2 is GLAAD. GLAAD is an awesome resource for those who are less knowledgeable about the things like legal name changes, the rights you have as a transgender person, and the lines that you must take in order to get on HRT based on your state/country, as well as surgeries that are given if that is the path that you wish to take. The last and probably most important to my experience was the Gender Dysphoria Bible. This resource was invaluable in my decision to transition. It talks about every majorly documented effect of HRT, both testosterone and estrogen, as well as gender dysphoria, gender euphoria, and even a really awesome section about imposter syndrome, which is something that I struggled with a lot before coming out. The last thing is I will reiterate that you're going to experience transgenderism in a completely unique light. And although you are going to live an experience completely different from me, we can still feel as if we are going through the same experience. We are both connected through the fact of being transgender. You're not alone, and you never have to be alone. Reach out to the trans communities in your area. Trans Academy is awesome for those who don't have a localized transgender community. Talk with healthcare professionals. Come to decisions on your own terms. This decision is something that you should make entirely on your own, and that's what makes it beautiful, because it is your decision. With that, I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all next week. Bye.